Hi, Ian Newton here again. Welcome back. I want to talk to you about nutritional self-defense or dietary self-defense or just your body self-defense. Now, we're all familiar with the term self-defense. You would imagine that if you were threatened, if you were attacked, that you would do something to prevent injury. That could simply be removing yourself from the environment or fighting back. But what about nutritional self-defense? We don't tend to think in those terms, do we? We don't tend to think about our food as being an attacker or an enemy. But the fact is, it is. If you're sick of feeling just tired or lethargic, you've gained weight, you have insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, you've got arthritis, autoimmune problems, you just feel terrible, you just feel tired, you just feel grumpy most of the time. Well, there's a good chance that your diet is playing a major role in it. And that's a big part of what this program is about, making those changes. So that you can get to the end of, say, a month and decide for yourself, well, will I continue with this? And you might see, yes, I'm on the road to something really good here. I may have already made great inroads. I know I made terrific inroads in 30 days to the point where I just didn't stop. And I don't see any point in stopping. I've been asked, well, now you've done your experiment, are you going back? I said, well, why would I? Because I've reduced the amount of joint pain. I've lost 6 kilos. I feel healthier. I know my whole blood picture is better. Why would I go back? So there's an interesting study done. There's a group of researchers who study a thing called leaky gut, or technically known as permeable membranes or digestion or dysbiosis. It's where proteins or partially digested proteins and toxins can enter the bloodstream through the small intestine. And this usually occurs after there's been some kind of insult to the gut. And by insult, it could be a dose of barley belly or deli belly. It could be antibiotics because they interfere with the normal gut bacteria, the good flora, and allow this permeability to occur. And it's food. One of the studies they did, they got a lot of university students in and paid them $20 each because students will do anything for $20, as they said. They measured their gut permeability, looked for people who had quite good digestive health, gave them a McDonald's meal, and then found it took 14 days for their digestion to recover. It's as simple as that. That's how susceptible we are. During that 14 days, they were more susceptible to inflammatory problems because these partially digested proteins get into the bloodstream and your immune system has to defend against that. But there's a lot of things doing that. And this whole diet is about taking the things out that are causing these sorts of problems, and that's part of what we're doing. It's taking out the sugars, the processed foods, and the grains. Now, grains are probably the most difficult things for people to get their heads around. Shouldn't we be eating grains? Haven't people eaten grains for a long time? Well, yes and no. But the wheat people ate 200 years ago is not the wheat we eat today. It's totally different. It's a totally different plant altogether, basically. Plus, there are so many things done to it. There are the ingredients in the wheat that we don't get on with, things like gluten and phytates. And many people don't get on with gluten and don't even realize it. You don't have to be a celiac to not get on with gluten, of course. But it could be that, and the suspicion is heading in this direction, that because so many of the wheat-based products, wheat is sprayed with Roundup, glyphosate, and glyphosate has very many actions, killing weeds, that's the whole deal. But it adheres to the seed and is transported with the plant. It remains with the plant to some extent during processing, and you ingest it. Enters your body and it attacks the good bacteria, because one of the things that glyphosate is an antibiotic, and so it is killing. The other thing it is a chelating agent. You see, Roundup, when it was first developed, wasn't developed for plants. It was developed to spray on the walls of metal tanks to remove all the metal that was bonding to it, things like iron, magnesium, calcium, so they could clean the tanks. It's because glyphosate, or Roundup, is a chelator, When it enters your body, it does a similar thing. It chelates, it binds to it some of these important minerals and has an effect on you. One of the things it binds is an amino acid called glycine, and glycine is important for connective tissue health. So we could talk all day about the problems in this area, and this could be why, you know, as a bottom line, we could say, well, wheat's fine, but the new strains aren't, but the Roundup isn't, but the gluten isn't, but the phytates aren't. Simplest thing is not to eat it, and to test it for yourself. So to defend yourself against these things, it's about not being there. In martial arts, which is a long passion of mine, one of the rules for self-defense is don't be there. If it looks dangerous, go down a different road. If there are a group of people standing on one side, go on the other side. If you're standing amongst a crowd of drunk people, walk away. These are basic self-defense principles. So the rule there is don't be there, but the rule with food self-defense is don't eat it. It's as simple as that. If you don't eat the sugar, you don't get the insulin spike. If you don't eat the wheat, you don't have the problem with the glyphosate and the phytates and glutens. If you don't eat the processed foods, you don't have the problem with all the additives they've put in there, the artificial colouring and flavours and binders, excipients, fillers. Really pretty unpleasant things. So you can defend yourself. You can apply the art of nutritional self-defense and just eat well. Look after yourself and care for yourself. So if you want to learn more about this sort of thing, if you can flip across to the link. I'll put a link below this video, and that takes you straight to my blog page, and there are many articles on these topics, and you can also go off and research for yourself. There are some amazing books such as Always Hungry, Bread Brain, Wheat Belly, the obesity myth, and lots of people doing very specific research. See, there isn't much research in this world on wellness, so they have to go down a specific path. So they say, well, we know that a low-carb diet is good for epilepsy, or what's called a ketogenic diet. We know it's good in Alzheimer's and dementia. We know it's good in autoimmune conditions. There is more and more research going into different areas. MS, for example, there's a whole protocol in low-carb eating in MS, and that was led by a woman doctor who was so crippled with MS, she was doing her ward rounds in a standing wheelchair, and then within a year or so of adopting her protocol called the Walls Protocol, she was mountain biking. And what does she eat? Loads of veggies, quality fats, reasonable amount of protein. And that's what this is all about. Great, thank you. I'm Ian Newton.